about not get your emotion in control, because it actually builds cortisol. And when cortisol is built in your bloodstream, it's stress, it's anxiety, how whatever you just said and mentioned earlier before, it causes so much pain. And what actually happens when cortisol actually goes up in your bloodstream, you actually have a chance of 14 type of cancer. Everyone, hi, I'm Cindy King, and I'm the Sexy Love Scientist. I'm a relationship coach, and today we're going to be talking about Angelina and Brad Pitt's case regarding about their divorce and what they're going to be going through. And I actually have a special guest today that I want to introduce, and go ahead, my special guest. Welcome.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Cindy. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming to my show.
Thank you for inviting me. So I'm Nina Thiara, and I'm a divorce coach, and I help women when they're deciding whether to leave or stay in a marriage. I help them through the emotional part when they're deciding. I work through their fears and their concerns for the children and the finances, and you can connect with me on www.divorcetohappiness.ca.
Thank you so much for coming to my show. So I want you to go ahead and kick off about Angelina first. What's going on, what kind of stuff that you're noticing, her patterns as well in the relationship?
On is when there's a divorce and children are involved, women are, we tend to get emotional, and our emotions really kick in high gear. We're divorced, we get really emotional, and when there's children involved, we really have to think twice and get our emotions grounded. So we're coming from a place of compassion for the kids rather than our anger kicking in. So that's, I think with Angelina, that's what's going on. She's very emotionally disturbed with what's been going on with Brad and his behavior towards the kids, and she really needs to ground that so she can move forward without affecting the kids.
No, that's a really good point, because I'm actually looking at her astrology chart right now. So I actually practice Vedic astrology, and what I'm seeing is her moon and Mars actually aspecting each other, or actually it's conjunct together. And it just means that she emotionally knows what she wants. So she's very controlling. She knows the X and Y and Z, and she's always come off a very strong individual woman. And because she's going through this phase where she wants to control things and maybe want to control Brad Pitt and the kids and every aspect of her relationship, and that could be the leading cause to, causing the chaos in the relationship. Do you agree?
Oh, definitely. I think there's probably been a pattern that's been going on, and we as women, we allow the pattern to go on, and then when something hits us, we're stunted. We don't know what's been going on. But if we connect the patterns and connect the emotions, we can see something totally different happening, for sure.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned about emotion, such a strong, empowering thing for how we are today.
Right.
And when I'm looking at her chart, for say, she has a cluster planets. So she has a whole bunch of planets are together, more than one or two or three. She actually have 3 planets together. And because she has this, when any hard planet, for example, any hardship in relationship or anything in life, she went through one after another, incidents after incidents, and she's actually got to the point where she's going to be blown up and she can't take this anymore. And, when she look at her partner, is he 51%? Is Brad 51% at the end of the day if she's going to leave or not? What's your thought about when to leave in a relationship?
Well, it all depends on the person, what's been going on in terms of how long have they been putting up with this. And we women we're always so busy with the kids. We're always so busy with lives, do. We never really look at what's been going on in our lives, a pattern. And then what happens is one day we're starting to get symptoms of anxiety or depression, or we have health issues come up, or just stuff's happening. Our kids maybe start reacting at school, or and that's when we start looking at things, and we still don't know because we're not emotional. A lot of women are not emotionally connected. So once we can start learning about the emotions, we can start making those decisions whether to leave or whether to stay.
No, that you have a really, really good point. So is it more important for Angelina right now? What is her biggest takeaway, how to deal with this divorce, going through this divorce? It's very new, it's very fresh. What kind of advice would you give her?
Is to get really clear on our emotions, okay? To ground ourselves rather than reacting. We women, we're naturally already emotionally powerful than the males are. So just to get connected with emotions rather than come from a place that to react to everything. Stay calm and get into your body and just listen to the emotions. Why am I feeling angry? What has my partner done? And really come from that place so you're able to make those decisions as you move forward.
Yeah, so that's a really, really good point. So because emotion is such a powerful thing, if you feel like, if you don't have the external world control per se, and so it's more likely that you're going to actually start controlling others. Is that true?
Oh, definitely, right? Because if you don't know your emotions and know who you are, so really, own your emotions, and then you're able to come from a different place where you're not, let the other person do their own thing, for sure.
What happens if we don't get our emotion in control? I think that's the biggest takeaway because, if you want to elaborate a little bit more, if once our emotion is not controlled, what happens? What's the outcome of that?
Well, we'll end up being all over the place. We'll be reacting, and we will be blaming, we'll be complaining, and we'll really never really take responsibility for the problem and start taking more, taking an action towards into the right direction. So we may be just looking at all different directions and not taking the appropriate action in order to move along in our problem.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, because when you're emotionally not in control of what you were saying, you become all over the place. And here's the biggest takeaway that I have learned about not get your emotion in control, because it actually builds cortisol. And when cortisol is built in your bloodstream, it's stress, it's anxiety, whatever you just mentioned earlier before, it caused so much pain. And what actually happened when cortisol actually goes up in your bloodstream, you actually have a chance of 14 type of cancer. And because Angelina Jolie had a fear of cancer and she got her ovaries taken out, double vasectomies, things like that, if she's too masculine, how can she get herself into a female, like a central feminine role? And she's going through this battle right now where she's going to be fighting with Brad, both the kids and everything else.
Well, I think looking at my own experience where I was, and I dealt with a lot of health issues, 20 years depression, anxiety, and not knowing my emotions. And if I had known, going back to cortisol, my cortisol was out the roof. Insomnia, you name it, it was happening. And if I had known my emotions and known how to feel them and own up to my emotions and coming from that place, I don't think I would suffer as much. And emotions play a huge role in everything we do in our lives, from the way we lead our lives, our marriages, how we gear our kids. It plays a huge role in everything we do. And once we can own our emotions and stay and connect to where the emotions are coming from, where the fear is coming from, and really hone those in, we can live really powerful lives.
No, that's a really important aspect. Do you think female is more gut feeling than in the head, like intuitively in the head, or are we more gut feeling based? What's your value? What have you seen?
Oh, definitely. Women are a lot more connected to their intuitive side, especially the gut. I know from my own experience that if something's happening, my gut will usually start telling me if it's right or wrong. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so even my experience, I go with gut feeling and there's no logic behind it. Whatever I'm feeling, I just have to own up to it and it doesn't matter. And I think it's such a powerful thing as a woman. And when masculine women, they override that, it's actually caused problems because they're, no longer ego dystonic, right? So that's mean they're no longer they're just serving their egos and not egocentric, which is serving their body gender. Gut feeling is such an powerful thing. It's you have no idea, and it's such a gift. But a lot of women are aware of it because they override that feeling. And what do you think Brad is going to be doing at this point after the divorce? What's your view on that?
Oh, I think men are more logical when it comes to divorce or any life situation. They don't feel their emotions. And so they're just going to go with it. And if the woman was a lot more connected to her emotional self and came from a place of not reacting to everything that's going on, it really helps the situation go so much smoother. So Brad's going to react to all that's going with Angelina. So if she's pulling the buttons and come from a place of control and anger and her emotions are all over the place, he's going to push. He's going to push, and he's going to stand up for himself and say, I'm not a bad parent. I didn't do that. And he's going to push as well. He's going to push back. And if we come from a place of we ground our emotions, the whole process would be so much smoother.
It would be. I totally agree with a lot of the statements we were saying, but I have a different point of view from, Brad's point of view. I feel like Brad is actually in the state where he's might rebel. So he's going to become Peter Pan and maybe start drinking and start rebelling and doing all the crazy stuff, having sex all over the place. So I think he's going to rebel, and I think it might hurt him in the case. Because where the last court saying this, that he needs to do drug tests. Do you recall that? That he's going to be doing a drug test every time. So according to that, in order for him to have child custody, or not child custody, child visit, having children visit him, he has to do a drug test. So he already did his first drug test, but I don't think he can keep it in together that long, even though men are not driven by their emotion, they're driven by logic, but even logic, they're feeling painful. I believe that men are very sensitive soul, especially masculine men. If you're saying that if he's a masculine man, he really want to step up the game. So does that mean that, he might be a sensitive soul and he's hurting too? Because
definitely. Men just deal with emotions differently. Also men are simple. That's something we have to look at as well. And women forget that because we don't understand each other. So yeah, definitely that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking at his chart right now, and I'm seeing that they're both, Angelina and Brad Pitt, are going through, they call it the dasha, and it just means that life cycle, and they're both going through a Saturn cycle. So what a Saturn cycle means, like karma. You're here to learn a lesson, and this is a lesson that we're not avoiding, and you have to go plow through. And maybe this is it. You just enter it in, actually he's going to start entering in November 27th of this year, and he's going to be really, working on boundaries. And Angelina Jolie is the same thing. She got a transit Rahu with Saturn. It means that she needs to learn how to put up with boundaries. And at this point, she's probably got fed up with all his, Mr. Peter Pan at night and drinking and not coming home and not minding the kids. And her boundaries she's got fed up with it. And he's like, you know what? You're no longer 51%. I'm leaving because you're not a great man at the end of the day at 51%. What's your views on boundaries? How important that?
Boundaries are so important. And just looking at my own, women don't, there's a pattern going on, obviously. And women have a lot of fear, and we just let it go. And then once we can get those patterns, then we look, wow, we forgot about the boundaries. We just forget because we're so busy with doing, keeping everybody happy, and we forget the boundaries. But the boundaries are so important. But once you get those boundaries back in, the relationship navigates a lot smoother for sure.
Yeah, so boundary is can you give me an example of boundaries in your life where you have to implement it?
I think, oh God, my boundaries were so out of control, I can't even tell you. In terms of my relationship, not being able to speak up for myself and saying, no, I'm not going to do that, or that doesn't work for me. I can't give you a specific example offhand, but not really standing up for myself and valuing myself and say I'm important and this is what I believe in. So that's been a huge lesson for me. And now I have boundaries where I love myself and I understand, this is what's important to me. But boundaries play a huge role in relationships for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's such a huge thing. So the book that I actually read from Boundaries is actually called Henry Cloud. I don't know if you ever heard or read the book, but it's a really good book where I started to learn how to do boundary. And people are meant to push boundaries, or Saturn, what you want to call it. They're going to test you to your limits, right? Even though you say no, but they're going to be like, oh, she's a softie. And, they're going to keep pushing and pushing but you have lost it. So I think it's so important. Like, that book has changed my life per se, how to actually put boundary in place, and it's actually meant to be challenged, but you need to be consistent.
Right. And then also your emotions play a huge role there. So if you're grounded in your emotions and know who you are, then you're able to put those boundaries in. If you don't know your emotions, you're not where you're all over the place, you can't put those boundaries in. And that's where I was. And now connecting to emotions and be able to put boundaries in place is so much easier for sure.
Do you think communication plays a huge role in the relationship, like Angelina Jolie?
Of course, communication is huge. You have to be able to communicate effectively so the kids aren't affected, and try to put that anger aside. I know it's hard. I've been there. Just, I know, life, it happens. So just put that anger aside. Come from a place of compassion. I know it's hard. It's hard, but it can be done, especially when there's kids, whether they're young, when they're old. You're their role models, and you need to show that.
Oh, that's great. I want to conclude our conversation today, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on my channel, and I would love to connect with you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and like my video and share and comment below what's your thoughts on Brad and Angelina Jolie's relationship. I also have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can join me there at Ask Cindy King. The webpage that you can visit me at cindyvking.com. I will see you then. This is Cindy V. King, the sexy love scientist. Have a great day. Bye now.